Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everybody Matters. I'm Jill Catherine, the host of our chat, and this is our Family and Friends edition. So thanks for tuning in. This is our time every month that I spend a few moments here to give you some tips and insights and some understanding around the topics of eating disorder, disordered eating, or body dissatisfaction. And this is April, and in May, next month, we won't be having our live chat. I'll be on location, but not connected to internet during that time. But what we will do is just shoot you a link out to some of our past chats, because we have a whole collection of videos that address such different areas of this. And so we'll shoot you out some, and maybe, hopefully, one of those videos will speak to something that you need to hear when you get it in your inbox. And there's, you can check our YouTube pages that we have a number of, family and friends chats that are public. And some, back early on years ago, we honed in on the sort of eating disorder 101 for family and friends. How to set up a treatment team, why that's important, what that looks like. So, really taking you through those steps initially. At this stage, we really talk, what I aim to do is share with you guys sort of a deeper insight, a deeper knowledge of sort of the day-to-day, life-to-life stuff of how you can support your loved one. And what I love to do is, so every week we have a chat for those who are in recovery. And I like to sort of share with you some of the things we talk about, and to do this so you get a real insight into what it's like for those who struggle, and so then hopefully you can find through me sharing with you what we talk about and how we support each other, that you can find your truth of how that makes sense for your loved one. Because every single one of our situations is different, right? I mean, what's happening with your loved one, I can, obviously can't know all the details. And so what I aim to do, and my intention, is to share broadly some ways to go about this and ways you can support them. And then just take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Take what you think can be relevant to your situation, make it your own, and how that can relate to your loved one, and go from there. But there certainly are broad themes and skills and stuff that we can do for those who are struggling with this. So I'm just checking in and make sure that, all right, checking our technology here. It looks like we're rocking and rolling. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Checking all the screens. Okay. So, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is, how something I thought was really interesting on one of our calls is, someone who was in recovery and was working pretty hard at, working on making, and here's the thing, the phrase was, she was working really hard at making peace with food, and then trying to make peace with herself. And that was an affirmation, right? She's really trying to make peace with food. And at the same time, there was a real big desire for control, right? Around the body, around weight. There's this, at the same time, I'm trying to make peace, but I want to control, my weight and my body and my size, right? And that's not uncommon. That's such a big part of this, right? This control around our size and shape. And thinking, if I can control that, I'm going to feel at peace. And so one of the things that we really dug into pretty deeply on that call is how one of the biggest challenges in recovery, and I'll say that's something I went through. And so people who don't go through that, you don't have to do some of this work that we have to do, or else we can't survive. And so so I say that like one of the biggest things we have to do is to really deprogram ourselves from thinking that weight matters, that the size of our body matters, and that it matters to a point that that it has to be so controlled and that it has to be a certain way. And the reason why that can be difficult for other people who aren't, it's difficult enough for us who are going through it, but can be even more difficult for family and friends, is that you don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, you think, well, yeah, you're supposed to control, weight, and it's such a measurement of health, and we have such moral judgments around the size and shape of people's body, and we don't know anything about who they are or what they are, or anything about their life. And whether they're in fat bodies or non-fat bodies, it's irrelevant. They're not unworthy, and they're not beautiful, and not smart, and not successful, just because we have different sizes of our body. That'd be just like saying just different races or different ethnicities or different genders have more value, are more loved, are healthier, are better. Because each and every single one of our physical bodies is different, is genetically, scientifically different. And no one particular size or shape is what all of our bodies are supposed to be. They're supposed to be our own. That makes sense for our genes. That makes sense for our physical frames, that makes sense for our lifestyle, that makes sense for who we are. And, what we've done in our culture is our culture has taken, every culture does this, we take one particular body type and say that's the ideal. And that's the ideal beauty, that's the ideal health, that's the ideal look of fitness. And we obsess and we think anything that doesn't fall within this range is unworthy, there's a problem with it, that it's just not enough. And that is an extremely dangerous thing, because we all have, every single one of us has a unique body that has a unique size or shape or weight. My weight has nothing to do with a height and weight chart or a BMI. It has to do with me. It has to do with my genes. It has to do with my internal body. It has nothing to do with charts that are categorizing people. But so often we don't critically think about this. We just accept that we're supposed to be a different size. Right? And that something's wrong with us. We're not strong enough. We're not, something enough if we can't get our bodies to look like that. And we think that's the whole problem. Meanwhile, we've lost our entire lives distracted by that, and we're not even living why we're here, what we're supposed to be doing. We have a physical body. We have a form so we can be in the world, to be living, not to be obsessed on the form. I'll say that again. We have a physical form, a body, so we can be alive. If we didn't have this, we want to be alive. So we have this to be alive so we can love and share and grow and have experiences and to have a human life. But we didn't get this form so we could stop and just obsess about the form. It's not about the form. It's not about the size or shape of our body. But when we believe that it is, when we believe the cultural narrative of thinner is better and fitter and stronger and size and shape are all these moral judgments, when we believe that, we have lost our way. We've lost sense of it's like this, a spell gets casted on us. We get lost in that. And so I'm sharing all this to you because those of us who have to go through this, we have to deprogram. We have to re-educate ourselves on what really is valuable. We have to re-educate ourselves on how what our bodies can look like and that be okay, and that we're not comparing them to anything else. So we have to do that. We have to strip away that cultural narrative and say that is a total lie. Okay? We have to do that, and then we have to find our natural health, our natural, physical sense that feels good to us. Not that it looks a certain way or fits into a category or fits into a chart, but just feels like us. We have to do that. And there's a gift to us. We get to do that. We get to take our life back. And the thing is, I share that with you because you don't have to do that. You can continue to live in that thinking, and that's your choice. But when you're recovering from this disease, to get to recovery, you have to push through that, or you're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay stuck. So one of the things that came up in our chats is how this woman was, really trying to make peace with her weight, right, and food. And then herself was last. And so the teaching, right, the self-care tool, the recovery happens when we don't need to spend any time trying to make peace with food, because food isn't the issue. The issue is we're not feeling at peace with something happening in our life. That's what is calling us. When we are distracted, and this is what happens with those who struggle, right? Not everyone, but this is broadly speaking, when your loved one is really obsessed with food and, all these behaviors, right? And image and body, when they're really obsessed and sort of focusing on that, what that really is saying is that there's something that I'm unsettled with that is really wanting my attention, that I'm not at peace with, and I'm not at peace with that, so I go here. I go to these surface things of these substance, food and other behaviors. I go there because there's something I'm not at peace with here. Maybe I'm not at peace with a loved one or my teacher or a friend, or I'm not at peace with a grade I just got, or I'm not at peace with a conversation I just had, or I'm not at peace with feeling worthy. I just don't feel like I'm enough. I'm not at peace with what I'm supposed to do. I'm not at peace with what's the next step, right? So it could be any number of things. The point is, when we're not at peace with something in our life, and we don't explore that, we're going to go off into the disorder. It fills in the gap. It's like the autopilot. That's where you go. So it's not about making at peace even with your body or food. It's about making at peace with what's happening in your life. And that's a moment to moment, day by day. Those are skills we have to learn. And those are skills all of us as adults are always trying to learn. So no one's perfect here. There's not an end goal. But it's a really good opportunity for you and your relationship to your loved one, for you to explore the areas that you need to be at peace with, for you to become mindful of what do you do when you're not at peace with stuff, when you're unsettled with stuff in here? Where do you go? What's your autopilot? Because the whole stuff around the eating disorder, that's their autopilot. We all have these autopilots. This one is just very dangerous, right? Because we need fuel. We need scientifically the physiology of our human form. We need food. So pay attention, right, where you find your loved one really obsessing or sort of falling into those triggered behaviors of what's up for them. What's going on for them? How was their day? How did school go? How did that, trying to really get them to see, because they don't know. That's part of the disease that has this mask. It keeps tricking you and thinking like, no, that's what's really important. It's not. It's what's underneath. And so for you, just having that awareness really can really help you, in your dialogue. And instead of you just reacting to whatever the food thing is, instead of going there, go to, well, what's going on? What's up for you? What are you wrestling with? What's stirring inside of you? Because trying to get to peace, you don't get there by just talking about substance, the issue, the substance you use to deal with this. If you just stay talking about this, you never get here. You got to get here. And this helps. All that's going on out here is what's happening in here. So that's something that, we talked about as how we can keep moving forward. Is that every time that we personally find that about ourselves, that we start obsessing on those behaviors and those superficial aspects, is an opportunity for us to say, something is stirring inside me that needs my attention. I'm really not at peace with something. I'm really struggling. What is it? And something we talked about is how we have to ask ourselves that question and then be willing to be quiet for a moment so we can hear our own answer. And I shared it with you because it'd be a great exercise for you to do and for you to dialogue with your loved one. Is, if a common thing is when people are struggling, they're like, you say, well, how do you feel? I don't know, or I'm fine, or there's like a detachment. And if we can encourage us to say, you know what, let's for a moment just, ask ourselves, how do we feel? And let's not answer. Let's see if we can hear what the response is. So you can say to your loved one, just think about this for a minute. How do you really feel? Don't answer right this second. What do you hear comes up inside of you when you ask yourself that question? Because we're helping them to try and build this inner voice, right? That they can hear their own voice instead of hearing the voice of the ED. We want them to start hearing that inner voice. So we can do that when we start asking ourselves, okay, how am I feeling? And then I can say to myself, okay, listen for my answer. I want to listen for how am I really feeling? And then that comes from our heart. If we're listening for the answer. So that's something you can start to, bring into your interactions. And when you talk to them, how they're feeling. If they're like, I don't know. So, okay, let's just sit here for a minute. And let's see if we can hear. What's the first thing that comes up to me when I ask myself, how am I feeling? The first thing that comes up is, I'm feeling pretty alive. That was just my response, right? But that's because that's the first thing I heard. So we want to help to cultivate those inner listening skills, right? Those inner listening. So I appreciate you tuning in. So just to recap what we talked about was the focus of needing to make peace with what's going on in our life helps us to make peace with what we think are the issues. Those aren't. It's about needing to make peace with the different things happening in our life. That's what we need to make peace with. That's what will help us to make peace with ourselves. And then that will help us to make, peace with all these other areas. And then, listening, helping our loved one to tune in and hear, listening from within what it is when they're doing check-ins, when they're trying to get in touch with how it is they actually feel, what it is they actually care about. Is to take a moment to ask the question, pause, and see if you can hear the answer. We'll see you back live in June. Thanks so much.